All right, welcome back. To continue the presentation, I want to show you a couple pictures of the setting of The Awakening. Grand Isle, Louisiana, is the place where Kate situates her story, The Awakening. You can see the beautiful beaches here. On a larger map, you can see that Grand Isle is down here, near the bottom of Louisiana. To zoom in even more, you can see this is what that island looks like. It's very long, very narrow, and not directly connected to any land other than this small area over here. Very near to Grand Isle was a second island called Chinere Caminada, and this island is also it also makes an appearance in The Awakening. This island is actually where Edna, our story's protagonist, makes a bit of a getaway for a little while. This island was the perfect getaway location because it was separated from the rest of the world, not only because it was an island, but because it had recently undergone some horrific damage from a hurricane. I'm not going to read all of this information on the screen right here, but I'd like you to pause and read this quote from a newspaper around the time when a hurricane hit the island of Chinere Caminada. Many people died, much livestock was killed, and because there was this effect on the island, separating it even more than it already was, it made a very effective getaway, an effective hideaway for the fictional character of Edna Pontellier, but also for Kate Chopin, who also visited the island. Here's a picture of the island. I recognize that the picture is blurry and grainy, but it was the very, very late 1800s moving into the 1900s, so the pictures are just going to look like this. But the hurricane that hit the island in 1893 killed over 800 people on this small island, so it had some horrific effects. Here are a couple other images from the hurricane. You can see how the island was just wrecked from the violent weather. So moving into a discussion of what you're going to see in chapter 1 of this book, we will not be reading it as a class, but I do want to go ahead and give you a little bit of information to guide your reading as you get started. Look out for the features of local color that show their face in chapter 1. Think about the clothing that people are wearing, the people who are associated with New Orleans and the people who are labeled as Creoles. Also, take a look at the green and yellow parrot. That parrot speaks multiple languages, and that's another element of local color because in New Orleans there would be blends of various different cultures, specifically French culture, Spanish culture, and the parrot also speaks some unknown language. There's a resort south of New Orleans, so this area would have been very popular for vacationing. So you'll see some elements of this vacationing atmosphere in the book. Also, you'll see a quadroon nurse, and if you don't know that term, quadroon just refers to the offspring of a mulatto and a white. So it's a person who is 1/4 black. Also, another element of local color that comes up is the reference to a Creole lady who wears white, contrasted with a Catholic lady who's walking very modestly, very demurely, and she's wearing black. So Chopin already sets up this white versus black dichotomy that's going on, and I think it's interesting because the Creole lady, the lady who stereotypically would probably be labeled as more wild, more on the edgy side, is the one wearing white, a color traditionally associated with purity. And the Catholic lady is the one wearing black, and that color is traditionally associated with darkness and sometimes even with sin. So very early on, we can see Kate Chopin calling out the stereotypes in her world and saying, hey, just because someone's Catholic doesn't mean they're good, and just because someone is Creole doesn't mean they're bad. You can anybody can be good or bad, no matter who they are, what their history is, where they're coming from. And that's one thing I love about her, is how she doesn't buy into stereotypes, and she makes us think about the world around us. As you read chapter 1, just a little bit of guidance for you, I would suggest that you look out for allusions, for imagery, foreshadowing, and symbolism. There are many examples of each of these, but a few that you might want to focus on specifically is the foreshadowing and symbolism of the parrot that repeats over and over, go away, for God's sake. Also, there's a wedding ring, actually a couple wedding rings referenced, and that's very symbolic. I'm not going to tell you what it's symbolic of, but think about what might be symbolic there. We've already talked about the local color that appears, but that's definitely a spot where you'll see some imagery, some beautiful images that appeal to our sights, to our senses, such as smell, taste, touch, and so forth. And also, you'll see some foreshadowing. The way Edna interacts with Robert, and the way that Mr. Pontellier reacts to Edna's interactions with Robert. Those are very telling of some things that might happen later. And also Zampa. I'm just going to kind of drop that for you. Look it up. See what Zampa is. That might give you some clues about what is going to actually happen in this story. Finally, Grand Isle is the location of the text. We've already mentioned that. But just so that you know specifically, it's located in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. And it's right at the spot where the Barataria Bay meets the Gulf of Mexico. So it's a place of blending. It's a place where one thing leads into another, where two things become one. Zampa, here is a little bit of information about it, but you might want to look up more, as I already mentioned. But essentially, it's about an immoral pirate who is dragged off to his death at sea. He dies in the ocean. And then also, as already mentioned, Shinare Caminada is a very popular vacation place, but it was destroyed by that hurricane that we already looked at some pictures of. So, this is my quick introduction, my quick overview of Kate Chopin's life and The Awakening. This should give you what you need to begin reading the text. But if you have additional questions or anything that you'd like to discuss, please let me know. Come in for study hall, send me a remind text, whatever you need from me, I'm here for you guys. So, best of luck. I look forward to discussing this text more with you.